I have always loved glitter ever since I was a little girl, and I grew up in Manhattan Beach, Brooklyn. And across the street from right on the beach, there were these huge boulders, and they had silver glitter in them. They had mica. They were silver. I was so fascinated by that they were glitter, and I always wanted to reproduce these big glitter rocks. I think early vinyl pieces, I found that if I use clear vinyl, I could use any, sand from that very beach, and just everything looks brilliant on vinyl. This paint is called cell vinyl, paints that Walt Disney developed to paint on the flexible animation cells. So I started using them to do these vinyl paintings, and they're amazing. What inspires me to begin a work is often having a particular need to study whatever it is that I'm painting. Painting makes me feel so sexy. Painting is very sexy. Sometimes when I'm painting and two colors come together, I experience something like I've waited my whole life for these two colors to come together and meet. And it actually happens, and you just can't believe, the feeling. Dogs to me are public sculptures on leashes. They're just fantastic shapes. The structure of a dog, that's what I also love about bags, is the structure of a bag. And that's what I love about dogs too, is their structure. There's something about them that I just love drawing. And when I realized I was loving drawing them, I just naturally thought that I wanted to make big glitter and vinyl dogs. I remember when I was a little girl growing up in Brooklyn, I would go to the Lower East Side and go to Essex Street and buy designer bags. I would get clothes in like Mays or the cheapest stores, but bags, somehow I always loved designer bags. So I thought, instead of buying them and having them clog up my house and not being able to store them, or I'll just make them. The first bag I did was this Armani bag, and the reason I wanted to draw it is because just the way the leather was so crumpled and crushed, it looked like it would be so much fun to draw, and it really was. I was dying to see large sections of glitter, and I had this enormous need to, make these bags, and it just seemed natural that they would be glitter. I do them all in reverse, and it's so amazing to me because the back is so rough and coarse, and then the front, it's just like jewelry. I came back from a trip to Panama Canal, Costa Rica. I was in a lot of tropical rainforests. The flowers were so mind-boggling. I felt very inspired to come back and make large pieces based on these. So this orchid was an orchid that I saw in a rainforest in Costa Rica. They're so overwhelming when you see them. You come upon them and you just can't believe these things exist. So I wanted the piece to have that same impact. You come upon it and you just can't believe that it exists. So I made it out of gold glitter and gold leaf. It's all done in reverse, so the background is gold leaf. That's many, maybe 30 books of gold leaf on the back, and then glitter. It's all, done in reverse. And even though it's an orchid, I'm calling this Gilding the Lily, because I think it's so funny to call it that. But I loved, the way the Tibetan pieces are gold on gold, and I wanted this to be gold on gold with gold, and just be an overabundance of lushness and texture. So I know this woman, she's a painter now, but she used to be a dancer. And in this dance, and this is from photos of when she danced years ago, and in this, she's dressed as Wonder Woman in some kind of Shakespearean dance piece or performance piece. And I love that it's narrative, and I've done a few narrative paintings and I would like to continue in this direction. Ever since I was a little girl, I loved to make things. I mean, I drew and I painted, but I really loved to make things, I would take tissues and fold them and put bobby pins and perfume, and I loved to give these things to people because I loved to share joy, and these things were always so joyous to me, and I've always just loved making things. You know, people say, oh, it's so elegant, pearls and black dress or pearl. You know, I think the most elegant thing is glitter on vinyl. It's just so beautiful. You know, happiness is a choice. I think we can choose to be miserable, we can choose to be happy, we can choose to be any way at all. Discipline is the key to happiness, because when I tell myself, when I feel an impulse, and you know, an artistic impulse or to do spiritual, whatever it is, and I actually follow through, it's a very ecstatic feeling.